let's have a quick review of the Six Nations, and we'll go all in on England. I can maybe give a few anecdotes from some of the other games, but we'll do that on the Rugby Pod with Goody this week. What do you make of England going into the Six Nations? Have they won the hearts and minds of the general public? Do you think it was harsh, everything that they were getting, or do you think it was warranted? And we've just watched that game against France. They were winning up to the last kick of the game, effectively. I know there was a couple of plays off the kickoff to get through, but I think England looked very good. Completely underestimated by a lot of people in the lead up to the Six Nations. You're removed from all the social media kind of hype and the TV stuff, although you will see it, I'm sure. What's your kind of general overview of where this England team are at now?
I think they'll be in a really happy place. I think it's been. I'm not sure whether you can say it's been a successful Six Nations, because I think success is obviously, for a team like England, is winning it, and they've lost the games that they have. But it's hard for me, because I have a soft spot for that England group now, especially with the coaching setup that's in there with Wiggy and obviously Steve and that in there as well, and Kev. But I think they've gone well, mate, and there you go. There's another one.
You've done a few, mate. You've done a few. I've just done one as well. You've done a few. It's fine.
Yeah, there you go. It's not as many as last time. That's all that counts. But no, they've gone well. Obviously, that Ireland performance last week was outstanding, and people seem to forget that England are World Cup semi-finalists, bronze medal winners. You know, no one put them down for doing that. They've beaten Ireland, they've ran France close, and they've done all right, iffy jobs against Italy and Wales, but got the job done. The only one was that Scotland game that they'll be really disappointed with their performance. So I think they're building nicely. You know, you've seen a few changes, a few new faces come in. You can start seeing the direction they want to go. I know today they were unlucky in that France game, and they were under pressure for that first 40 minutes. So to withstand that pressure and then do what they did early parts of the second half, they'll be disappointed not to see it out. Of course they will, but I think there's definitely signs of growth and development and moving forward.
Can you see how they want to play? You mentioned Richard Wigglesworth fronting up the attack, been under massive kind of scrutiny again from the media about how they played. I know that Wiggy wasn't necessarily involved in that during the World Cup, but with that boring, mundane kicking style, which I actually quite like, and the physicality that got them to a semi-final to almost beat South Africa. But with that, Fred, like, how difficult is it to evolve your game? Do you think that suits the way that England should play going forward if they want to win the Six Nations, they want to win a Grand Slam, they want to really elevate their game?
Yeah, they need to. They want to elevate their game. I mean, they want to do what they did last week against Ireland and in parts today against France. But I think sometimes before you can win rugby games, you have to become hard to beat. And I think that's what you saw in the last, since Steve's taken over, is England have become, bar when they play Scotland, they've become pretty good at, pretty hard to beat. You know, they're physical, they play that kicking game. And then what you've seen in the last few weeks in particular is them starting to develop that attacking game and starting to go after teams a little bit more now. So it's always, we live in a day and age now where everything needs to be instant. Everyone thinks it should be, changed straight away. And I think England have built nicely. You see the job Steve did at Leicester. It took him a year or two there to get that team to where they were. England are just moving forward. They're a hard team to beat now. I don't think teams particularly like playing against them. And after the last couple of weeks, there's now signs of that attack starting to get firing. And I think there'll be a force to be reckoned with in the summer against Japan and the All Blacks.
Do you think any of the players are going to be missed? So talk of Manu Tuolangi retiring from England, going over to France, or maybe heading over to Fiji to play, which I think would be class if he wanted to do that. Danny Kerr as well. We know about Owen Farrell. So out of them kind of players, Freddie, do you think England will miss any of them in particular? Or are you loving the Ollie Lawrence coming through, like Finn Smith, on the kind of fringes of that? Marcus Smith, I know he came on at fullback and stuff like that. But they are three like massive players, like Manu Tuolangi, Danny Kerr and Owen Farrell. They're three arguably first names on the team sheet a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there's no doubt that you miss those kind of players. Like, they've been great servants to the game. They're experienced. They've won big club competitions. They've won big international games. So there's no doubt that you'll miss them, but there is an excitement around that new batch coming through, and sometimes, there has to be a change of the guard at some stage. So it's a bit of both. You're going to miss them, but those boys coming in, they need to be given time, though. That's the thing, is you can't expect them to come in and have the same impact. I think Ollie Lawrence has grown as this competition's gone on. He was brilliant against Ireland last week, brilliant again today. And there's still a few sort of senior heads in there with, like George Ford, I think, has been outstanding the last few games as well. So there has to be a change of the guard. Those players will be missed, of course they will, but at the same time, those young boys coming through, they need to be given this time to push forward in time for the next World Cup and time to develop in that international arena.
I want to throw a couple of anecdotes out there about Steve Borthwick and then get your views on whether or not he is the right man to take England forward. So I didn't see it after Marcus Smith's drop goal to beat Ireland. I don't know if you've seen it over there. I don't know what footage you've seen, but before the game today, they showed the drop kick and they showed the carnage and the hysteria in the crowd, on the pitch, and then in the coaches' box. All the coaches are going mad. Tom Harrison, Wiggy, obviously Alan's up there or down there at the pitch side as well. All the coaches are going ballistic. Steve Borthwick, face, didn't flinch. He's just sat there, like, as in not flinching whatsoever. And I'm just like, the guy's a phenomenon. Like, he's a freak of nature. He's a very different human to me and yourself, Freddie Burns. But that doesn't surprise me that he wasn't like that. But it surprised me a little bit because I was like, mate, you've just beaten a team that's on for the Grand Slam. And it's everything. You're at Twickenham, the way that you've played, and he didn't show any emotion. And I was chatting to a couple of mates as well about it, and they were like, well, do you remember when Saracens won the Premiership and won Europe? I was like, no, I wasn't there. I came in to replace Steve. And they were like, well, when they won the Premiership and, like, obviously they're all getting smashed on the bus, Steve sat there with a can of Coke, just smiling from ear to ear at the front of the bus, and there's fucking piss, literally, and alcohol being thrown all over him, like just this kind of monotone look. But he is a bit of a freak, isn't he? A freak of nature in terms of how he goes about his business. But he's been under mass pressure, and I think it's just really class to see him come through that now. Yeah, they didn't win the Six Nations, but the performances that they put in place, the way they played against Ireland and winning, and the way they played against France. Do you think he is definitely the right man to take England forward?
Yeah, I definitely think he's the right man to take England forward. With Steve, like, Steve is Steve. He's Steve is Steve. What a lot of people would say. Is odd. Like, but one thing I say about Steve is he cares deeply about England, but B, about his players as well. And one thing I always remember at Leicester is, it'd be before a session and boys might be playing a bit of cricket or a bit of football, and Wiggy would be running around the energy, and Alec would be there sort of taking the mick, firing pelters back and forth. And Steve would just be stood there like he normally is, but you just see like a little wry smile out of him. And you know that he loves seeing people enjoy their job. He loves seeing people celebrate and all that. It's just not in his nature to be one of those sort of straight arming pints after a drop goal to win it. So I always found, you had like a teacher at school, you sort of, if they said a nice word to you, it really meant a lot. That's what Steve is. You don't get gushing compliments from him like all the time, but when he does give you that sort of pat on the back or a nice little compliment or a well done, it means a lot. But I love him because I know Steve from working under him and all that. It makes me laugh. I just see it because people just don't get it. People just don't understand him as a bloke. I don't really understand him, but I know what he's like now. So I sort of look and laugh. But he would enjoy it as much as anyone. But he's more happy seeing the boys enjoy themselves, and he'll keep a level head and enjoy his Diet Coke and probably go home with his family and celebrate with them.
Steve is Steve. That's it.
Steve is Steve, mate. Steve!